Okay, ready? Everyone ready? Order, order. Jonathan Hinder to move the motion.
Thank you, Mrs Harris, and I'm pleased to speak under your chairship today. I beg to move that this House has considered the effectiveness of the Police Federation. And I'm going to start by briefly sharing some of my own experiences as a police officer. So brace yourselves, because some of it isn't very nice. In my time in policing, I was the first to arrive at a triple homicide scene. It was a mother who'd killed her own 3 children. I saw people take their last breaths on earth at road accidents. I pulled a suicidal man down from a road bridge. I knocked on people's door to tell them that their loved ones had passed away. I was called to mentally ill people self-harming, down to the bone with a razor. I was spat at by the people I was arresting, and of course, subject to the most disgusting verbal abuse inside the police station from the people I was looking after in custody. This is the reality of policing. If only it were just about catching criminals. But it never has been, and it never will be. Now, I'm mentioning these incidents not because my experience was particularly notable, but precisely because it was the opposite. That is the reality of being a frontline police officer. You see all of that, and then 1 minute you've got to be physically tough in the face of aggression, and the next you've got to be emotionally sensitive with a victim of serious crime. That's what our police officers do day in, day out, earlies, lates and nights on the public's behalf. We owe them so much for doing the essential work most people wouldn't have the guts to even consider. But being a police officer is mostly a thankless job. You get to the end of a long shift, doing your bit for society, and you feel the politicians don't back you up, the media don't back you up, the courts don't back you up. And this is an issue in itself, perhaps for another day. But in the meantime, we have to ask, who is looking out for the interests of our police officers? Which brings us to the Police Federation. The Police Act of 1919 stated that police officers could not join an ordinary trade union or take strike action, given their unique role in society. And to be absolutely clear, I'm not seeking to question that today. However, recognising the need for representation, this legislation established one staff association to represent police officers, the Police Federation, and this was reaffirmed in the Police Act of 1996. I want to pay tribute to the many hard-working Federation representatives over the decades, including some serving in forces across the country today, for the work they have done representing their local members. I do not diminish the work of those individuals in supporting individual police officers at their time of need. But I am afraid the national leadership of the Police Federation is rotten. It is not right that 140,000 frontline officers have to pay their subscriptions and put up with this because it is the only staff association that they are legally allowed to join. Over the last 2 years, the unelected Chief Executive of the Police Federation has paid himself £1.4 million in salary and bonuses, and it's paid through police officers' wages through their monthly subscriptions. This fact alone is shocking, but this is the culmination of years of failure. Most recently, senior members of the Federation who asked questions about its governance were purged from the organisation. Those elected representatives who reflected legitimate concerns of frontline police officers on policing issues were also purged. So how can there ever be reform if those who ask questions and could have helped to build a better federation are seen as the problem? And this goes much further back. The disastrous handling of the changes to police pensions, where the Fed was found to have misled its own members, to have failed to communicate with them, and to have actually victimised those officers, its own members, who were forced to take action on their own. The scathing Normington Review of 2014, after which cultural change was promised. But a decade later, things were still so bad that another report, the Bousted Review, completed just last year, described an arrogant and inward-looking culture born of a centralist mindset and, crucially, a feeling that the interests and views of rank-and-file members do not matter. If that is so, what is the Federation really for? I will.
I'm very grateful to him and very interested in hearing, because evidence he has experience. I am the chair of the Justice Union's Parliamentary group. I'd like to put that on record. But I think it is extremely important that police officers have a representation. We hear of the tragic cases of suicides and hundreds of attempted suicides only in the last 3 years. It is also evident that the governance of the Police Federation has to be adapted and improved immensely.
Jonathan Hinder.
I would not dispute that one jot. The present national leadership say that, and I'm quoting, "a transformed federation is the best way to deliver effective representation." But I'm afraid officers have heard it all before, and I dare say they will hear it again unless radical action is taken. And it's because of this repeated systemic and cultural failure that I have come to the conclusion that only if police officers are given the freedom to establish and join an alternative will they get the representation they need and deserve. The Police Federation has very few advocates within policing, and I thank the many officers who have contacted me to say how pleased they are to see this campaign getting attention, with many confirming that only the monopoly and fear of being without any representation when they really need it keeps them subscribing. I thank in particular, I will.
Morello.
I thank the honourable member for giving way, and he says that policing is often a thankless task. I think on behalf of all of the House I'd like to pay tribute and say thank you to the work that you've done and to the many other fantastic police officers, including my constabulary in Dorset Police. But he talks about the fairness of representation. I had a constituent with her daughter who was a police officer who was sexually assaulted by a fellow police officer. She was dismissed from the service as a result of a misconduct process that failed to recognise her trauma. But both officers were represented by the Police Federation, and the other officer got a more senior representation based on his rank. That can't be right.
Yeah, that's not something I'm discussing today, but he makes a very, very valid point, and I think there is an argument there that actually having diversity of options for officers could actually be very useful in those kinds of instances. So I want to thank, in particular, the NPA, formed of former Federation reps and staff, for their campaigning on this issue before me in their own time, and I thank the Metropolitan Police's network of women for sharing their concerns. The network's leadership told me that officers are effectively being asked, and I'm quoting, to fund campaigns that they fundamentally do not support without transparency, consultation or accountability. The Federation say that officers having choice... I will.
To his experience and his advocacy for police officers throughout the country. In my constituency of Stevenage, local officers from the Federation have been supporting police officers. This is not about them, but how can we support them by giving them more choice?
Jonathan Hinder.
Yeah, and I'm so pleased that he mentioned that, as I briefly did during my remarks, because I really don't mean to diminish the work of many Federation representatives. There are many brilliant Federation representatives and leaders in some parts of the country. This is very much about the national organisation and whether it can reform itself. The Federation say that officers having choice of representation, and I quote, would weaken, not strengthen, the voice of police officers. But it's hard to believe that it could be weaker than it has been in recent years. To reiterate, this would not require government funds. It's not about striking or unionisation, and the Federation can remain a staff association for police officers to join if they so wish. But allowing officers to choose a staff association that truly represents their interests would send a powerful message to our police officers that their interests and their voice matter. Now, I want to finish with something mildly amusing. The Police Federation has been running a campaign called Copped Enough. What the police take home is criminal, talking about how police officers' wages since 2010 have seen cuts in real terms. Now, this is a worthy cause. Would you do the things I described at the start of my speech for a starting salary of 30 grand? But during this time of running this campaign, the Federation has been led by someone paying themselves £700,000 a year from police officers' subscriptions. And he was recently arrested on suspicion of corruption. To remind you, The campaign that his organisation has been running is called "What the Police Take Home is Criminal." It's hard not to laugh, but in truth, it's a massive slap in the face for the police officers effectively paying those ridiculous wages whose interests the Federation should be serving. And I'm grateful for the Government's engagement on this issue already and for the Minister's response to my letter signed by cross-party colleagues 3 weeks ago. And I note the response states that the Government stands ready to bring forward reforms to ensure that the interests of rank-and-file officers are properly, effectively and robustly represented. So I hope, having heard the case set out today, that the Government will consider very seriously simply giving police officers the freedom to form and join an alternative body so that their interests are effectively represented. Thank you.
I remind members that they should bob if they wish to speak and to be called in this debate. And the question is that this House has considered the effectiveness of the Police Federation. I call Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, can I say a big thank you to Honourable Member for Pender and Clitheroe for highlighting the good work done by the Federation. First of all, I want to also thank the Honourable Gentleman for his personal stories and his experiences, and some of the things he referred to would be incredibly harrowing. I'm not quite sure if I could deal with any of those personally, from a personal point of view. I want to perhaps maybe take a slightly different role. The Federation, Police Federation in Northern Ireland, in particular, I have a very good working relationship with them. They're well respected by the police officers on the ground. So the things that the Honourable Gentleman has referred to will not be ones that I would be referring to, because I wouldn't have any personal experiences of those things happening, because I'm aware that they aren't. Now, maybe someone will come along to me later on and say, well, actually, this is not right. They're not perfect, but then I'm not perfect. Honourable Gentleman's not perfect. Nobody in this chamber is perfect. And that's how we are in this world. Can I thank, and nice to see the Minister in her place, and there's no doubt at all that the Honourable Lady is earning her money all afternoon yesterday and back into Westminster Hall to take on another role, and still smiling. My goodness, there you are, you've done well. Can I wish her well in the role that she plays? The Police Federation has a tremendous role of supporting individual members. I'm talking from the PSNI, from the RUC before them, but also the corporate body of policing. And I believe now more than ever we need the people who know advocating for the police personnel and also for the service in general. For years I have taken the police and the Federation and their advice, and have asked for greater resources for them as an elected representative, whether that been in the Assembly, where I was an Assembly member for 12 years before coming here, where we were able to advocate for them. When we have stood in this place and warned of a gathering storm, we also warned, and the Honourable Gentleman is right to highlight the issue of wages, and I want to refer to that as well, because and the pensions is another thing that the Honourable Gentleman has referred to, which my officers, or my police officers back home, are all having problems with as well. We warned that if you starve our police service of the financial muscle it needs, you don't just lose numbers on a spreadsheet, you lose safety on the streets. Now, the Police Federation for Northern Ireland, and indeed each federation, has delivered a wake-up call that should ring in the ears of every minister, whether Scotland, Wales, England or Northern Ireland. Our police service has been reduced to a skeleton. The Honourable Member referred very clearly to wages, and the men and women of the PSNI, they're not just employees, they are the glue holding this society together. And I think I wish to put on record my thanks to each and every one of those police officers for all that they've done. Yet, what is their reward, Madam Chair? They face a £23 million deficit while waiting months for the pay rises they have earned in the line of fire. And in the case of many officers in Northern Ireland, it has been earned in the line of fire, literally, and not just in words. I know it's devolved, and the Minister doesn't have a specific role for that, but I know the Minister is always very kindly and I know that she has numerous visits to Northern Ireland, so I'm quite sure that the Honourable Lady has had the opportunity to talk, as she always would do, to the police service in Northern Ireland, and particularly the Chief Constable, who I understand comes over here on occasions as well. But the funding is centrally allocated, and the issue is replicated throughout this United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And I believe we do need a UK-wide uplift in funding that supports them to do their job. Honourable Gentleman, in his introduction, referred to some of the things that happened. I just give you a couple of ideas. They're rammed in their vehicles, and the car chases you see in the TV programmes on many times in Belfast and across Northern Ireland, they happen all the time. And they're just as aggressive and nasty and criminal as they are on the TV. They're spat upon, they're verbally abused, they're assaulted some 9 times a day, to give an average. I mean, every day for a police officer, man or woman, is a difficult day. It's a day of challenge. Only to see the perpetrators walk away with measly fines and suspended sentences, whenever quite clearly they should have more. Little wonder that the Police Federation highlights low morale. Enough is enough. We need deterrent sentencing that sends a no-nonsense message. If you touch a police officer, you will feel the full weight of the law, and the time must fit the crime in relation to what happens. I conclude with this, Madam Chair. The effectiveness of the Police Federation can only be measured by measuring our response to their reports, to their application to duty, and recently to their pleas on behalf of their personnel, who need great support from this place. I know the Minister will want, as everyone here will want, to thank the Federation for their thankless task, the police officers individually and collectively for all that they do. But more than this, we need, Minister, to act on their words and support those who do a vital job at a great personal cost. And I'd be very interested to hear, and I know the Minister visits Northern Ireland on a semi-regular basis, to see what discussions she's had with the Chief Constable, John Boucher, and his personnel. I'm indebted to them personally for their protection, but I'm also indebted to them for all they do for my constituents and across all of Northern Ireland. We just wouldn't have a society without the PSNI, and we wouldn't have a society without the Police Federation in Northern Ireland to look after the PSNI as well. So thank you very much.
Margaret Mullane.
Thank you, Mrs Harris. It's an honour to serve under your chairmanship. Whilst the Police Federation serves a purpose, taking an active role in raising issues affecting frontline officers, particularly around pay and workforce issues, I'm not sure it's fit for purpose anymore as the sole representative body of 140,000 police officers across England and Wales. We've seen in the last few months alone that there have been significant failings across the structure, with ongoing investigations into corruption and the accountability of internal processes. Taken together, these issues risk further undermining the Federation's credibility as a representative body. I feel there has never been a better opportunity to open a discussion about ending the statutory monopoly on police representation. So long as operational independence, integrity and safeguards are robust and protected, I believe that as a workforce, the police deserve the greatest choice who represents their interest. It really matters to me that the police in Dagenham and Rainham get the very best there is. Speaking for police officers in Dagenham and Rainham, I know how much pressure they're under, and they can often find themselves in terrible and complex situations. I and the people of Dagenham and Rainham appreciate them greatly, and with that in mind, I really welcome this debate, and I'd like to thank the Honourable Gentleman, Jonathan Hinder, for his work on this. And with that, I welcome the debate, support breaking the monopoly campaign, and I'm hoping that this encourages greater parliamentary scrutiny of Section 64 of the Police Act 1996. Thank you.
Liz Jarvis.
Thank you, Ms Harris. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairship, and I congratulate the Honourable Member for Pendle and Clitheroe for securing this important debate. I was contacted by Dan, my constituent, who is a serving police officer. He tells me that the current level of support from the Police Federation is at times woeful, and that the best alternative support available is often found in informal peer support networks run by volunteers. Dan wants an effective body to represent him, one that better serves the interests of its members and provides meaningful support on the issues that affect officers. He has serious reservations about whether the Federation is delivering on its core purpose. Dan wants fundamental change to ensure fairness, choice and genuine well-being for those who serve. As we have heard, the Police Federation currently holds a de facto monopoly on representation, leaving officers with little real choice and limited accountability, a situation made worse by recent scandals. Dan tells me that these controversies have seriously undermined confidence in the Federation. As acknowledged in the Policing White Paper, it is vital that police officers have confidence and faith in the institution that represents them. Officers deserve robust support. I would like to reiterate that the mental health and well-being of officers are also major concerns. Police work long, demanding shifts, often with insufficient recovery time. This is not sustainable, either for the individuals concerned or for the effectiveness of the service as a whole. There is a clear need for greater support to ensure officers are able to rest adequately between shifts and for sufficient funding so that local services can offer proactive mental health and well-being check-ups, for example, every 6 months. Prevention and early intervention are key to maintaining a healthy and resilient workforce. Police officers are stretched and they are having to do so much with so little. So I urge the Minister to consider the views of hard-working police officers when considering any reforms. I am sure she will agree that it is imperative that they have an organisation that truly speaks for them and one in which they can have the utmost confidence. I would like to conclude by taking this opportunity to thank the police officers and support staff in Eastleigh for their dedication and commitment to our local communities. I am so pleased that after several years of campaigning, our officers and support staff are going to get a centrally located police station at last. We must ensure our police are properly resourced, fairly represented and fully supported to carry out their vital work.
Lib Dem spokesperson Marie Goldman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Harris, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, even though I know it was slightly unexpected for me to be speaking today. And I thank the Honourable Member for Pendle and Clitheroe for securing this actually very important debate. Liberal Democrats wholeheartedly support the overwhelming majority of honest, hard-working members of the police. We recognise the immense value of their commitment and service, while at the same time continue to hold forces to account to ensure that communities are kept safe. In my own constituency of Chelmsford, it has been a real privilege to join Essex Police on patrol and to see firsthand the brilliant work that they do keeping our communities safe. But it is crucial that police officers are properly supported and have confidence and faith in the institution that represents them, the Police Federation of England and Wales. With police officers having no choice in their representation and where their union dues go, the Federation must be effective and supportive to all officers. This is vital for retaining our existing police officers and increasing officer numbers, as the government has pledged. The reforms recently announced in the Policing White Paper must be implemented in the right way and must not come at the cost of officer welfare. The Police Federation has an important role in ensuring that this is the case. Sadly, the ongoing police investigation into senior officer holders within the Police Federation has naturally shaken confidence in the organisation. And this is unfortunately the tip of the iceberg in a longer period of faltering confidence in the organisation. Accounts of poor culture identified in independent reports, particularly towards women, must be dealt with. I have heard from senior female police officers who have argued that allowing them to choose their representative body would be welcome as a result of these repeated failings. They shared troubling accounts where, irrespective of their senior police positions, they had experienced marginalisation, isolation, and ridicule after raising issues within the Police Federation. In response, the Police Federation has committed to an ongoing transformation programme. However, women in the police have also expressed concern that some of the proposed measures to improve the Federation are inappropriate from the outset. For example, the Federation has spoken of developing a service for victims and witnesses who are Federation members, with a particular focus on women victims. This is, of course, welcome, but women have noted an inherent conflict that the current system means a victim or witness can only be supported by the same staff association that also represents the officer who may be the subject of the allegation or criminal investigation. As one officer put it, for many women, that does not feel safe, fair, or credible. Consequently, the absence of alternative representation can lead to some officers feeling trapped at exactly the time when they should feel most supported and protected. Like the rest of us, police officers have the right to freedom of association, guaranteed by Article 11 of the European Convention on Human Rights. This has formed the basis for the National Police Association's campaign and legal challenge to allow officers to choose their representative body. In light of this, my Liberal Democrat colleagues and I would encourage the Minister to review the effectiveness of police officer representation, including the potential benefits of reforming the legislation in this area to allow officers the option to choose a different organisation to represent them. Our police officers deserve to be listened to and supported by their representative body. The government should now listen to and support them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you, Ms Harris, for chairing this debate today, and I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for Pendle and Clitheroe for sharing his experiences and securing this important debate. I'd also like to acknowledge the passionate and detailed contributions from other members offering their insight into the current and recent issues facing the Police Federation and its members. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank and pay tribute to hard-working police officers across the country. The work they do day in, day out to keep our community safe is second to none. They put themselves in harm's way to protect the public, and they deserve all our thanks and admiration for that. Now, let's be honest, having a debate about the effectiveness of the Police Federation right now probably isn't the toughest call. I'll be careful not to stray into matters that are still subject to legal proceedings, but it's obvious why rank-and-file officers are deeply concerned. The arrests we've seen are extremely serious, and it's right that they are fully and properly investigated. But these issues don't sit in isolation. They add to a wider set of concerns raised by members, whether that's around governance, the handling of pension discussions, or employment tribunal cases. Furthermore, there have been legal cases involving the Federation, which have been dropped, that highlight concerns over free speech within the organisation, with officials seemingly being censored. At the end of the day, every police officer deserves strong, effective representation. These are the people doing the toughest and most demanding of jobs, often under significant pressure and with clear restrictions in place to ensure political neutrality. The least they should expect is a federation that backs them properly. While the Federation does important work, and I'm sure it supports officers well in many, many individual cases, there are clearly bigger structural concerns that need addressing. Colleagues will remember that at the start of the last decade, action was taken by a previous government to push for reform within the Federation. The Normanton Review set out a number of serious issues, but also highlighted the importance of having the confidence of members, something that's come through strongly again in today's debate. At that time, the government was clear that change was needed. As the then Home Secretary Theresa May said, if the Federation does not start to turn itself around, you must not be under the impression that the government will let things remain as they are. That warning was not issued lightly. It reflected a determination to ensure that the Federation did not lapse into the kinds of practices identified in the Normanton Review. And it was underpinned by a broader conviction that the Federation must be an authentic, credible and outward-looking voice for policing in this country. It cannot afford to become insular. Rather, it must reflect, with honesty and integrity, the experience of many thousands of officers who serve with dedication and courage. I appreciate that the Federation itself has recently conducted reviews and embarked on a journey of improvement, but events continue to raise significant questions about its performance. As such, looking at the current situation, I would ask the Minister what steps the government is taking to ensure the organisation is performing in the interest of all its members. The Police Federation was rightly created by an Act of Parliament over a century ago, so it places a responsibility on all of us to ensure that it works for all of its members. Has the Department made an assessment of the organisation's leadership within the structure of its current governance, and is it planning to do so after the legal matters have concluded? While I recognise the challenges within the Federation, it's critical to maintain the political neutrality of the police. I believe that any measure which weakens the independence of officers would be disadvantageous to the excellent work carried out by officers working across the country. I want to see a federation that is supporting police officers and helping those officers to do their job effectively. We ask officers to do challenging work. As such, it's right that they are supported by a federation that works effectively and properly for them.
Minister Sarah Jones.
Thank you, Mrs Harrison. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. Can I start by congratulating my honourable friend, the member for Pendle and Clitheroe, both for his career in policing and everything that he described to us, and for securing this debate. I think the start of his speech was incredibly powerful and reflects what I, as the policing minister, in the incredibly privileged position I have, hear very often from our police, both in my role and in my constituency role in Croydon. And I have heard many times of police officer in Croydon, for example, having to try and hold the wound of someone who'd been stabbed while they wait for the ambulance to come. The kind of trauma of that side of the role is there, loud and clear for everyone to see, but the sort of cumulative trauma of all of the other things that you have to do, and the way that you are sometimes treated, and the way, as he said, you feel you don't necessarily have the support of government or the public. I think, you know, he described it very well, and I couldn't do it better. I'm spending the day tomorrow trying to be as incognito as possible, going round with the neighbourhood police officer to just sort of spend the whole day on a shift and sort of hear as much as I can what the lived experience is of being a police officer. And sad I didn't do that just before this debate, but I'm looking forward to that very much. But you know, a really powerful speech, and I think lots of other members, I think all other members, have said in this debate that the police do a brilliant job. We shouldn't underestimate what they do. We should thank them for what they do, and we should never forget what we ask of our police, and we should always do right by them. Within that context, of course, this government is trying to reform policing to enable the police to do the job they came into the service to do, whether that's ripping away the kind of bureaucracy of a lot of the tasks that the police are given, because we haven't invested historically in new technology and new pieces of kit, whether it's putting police back into our neighbourhoods so that we can do the things that the public want us to do, and we're not frustrated by the public being frustrated about a lack of response. And of course the biggest police reform in 200 years, looking at the whole structures within policing. And within that context, the police officers still have to get on with their job. So not just a very difficult job, but also actually quite a lot of change heading their way, and we need to respect that. And in the middle of all that is this role of the Police Federation that I think is very interesting, and in a lot of ways I think a lot of members have said the same thing. On the one hand, the police do a brilliant job, a lot of the Fed reps do a brilliant job, but there is clearly something wrong with the way that the Federation has been functioning. I think what I've experienced since I became the Minister in September, and we've talked about this before, is I see the Fed every 2 weeks. We have a catch-up. Most of those conversations are about what are you doing on the transformation journey, what's happened, what's coming down the line. And I think that it's fair to say there has been frustration that everything that was in the Bousted review, for example, the 33 recommendations that Baroness Bousted made for change that we needed to see in the Federation, the change is not coming in the way that people expect, or as fast as people want, or in a way that we would expect. The role of government in this is I don't think there's any other organisation where we quite have the same relationship. We have a statutory responsibility to ensure that, as the legislation says, there shall continue to be a police federation, and for the purpose of representing members of the police force in England and Wales and special constables. And the legislation says, in fulfilling that purpose, the police federation must protect the public interest, maintain high standards of conduct, and maintain high standards of transparency. So set in law is our obligation as government to ensure those things are happening, and clearly, therefore, we take it very seriously in terms of whether those functions are being fulfilled in the way that they should be. And it's no secret that that we have been frustrated as have many others, at the pace of change and the scale of change. And of course, we've seen the arrests that have come in the middle of this conversation as well, which make it very difficult. We put in the white paper on police reform, we were very explicit about this and said we expect to see clear plans and demonstrable improvement in the Fed's operation. And in the absence of such improvements, this government stands ready to bring forward reforms to ensure that the interests of rank and file officers are properly, effectively and robustly represented. I think it's given the arrests that have come since the white paper, it's very hard for the Federation to give us the reassurance that we need because of everything that has happened. We are continuing the conversations with them. There is a lot of interaction between my department officials and the Fed, and we are sharing data and information and talking these things through. But look, I don't think anyone can pretend that the status quo is an option. It isn't an option. This government stands ready to do the right thing. The Shadow Minister sort of asked what we're looking at in terms of that, and I'm not in a position to sort of say what the next steps look like, but clearly matters have moved on, and clearly we need to ensure that there is proper representation for rank and file. So because there is also judicial reviews and as well as the criminal investigation, there is a limit to what I can say. So what I would say to conclude is that very much welcome the debate, very much welcome the contributions we've had from the member from Strangford. Thank you for your kind remarks. I'm seeing the Northern Ireland Supers Association soon, I think. The member for Dagenham and Rainham, who talked about what she needs in her, what the police need in her community, and that she's supporting the campaign. Member for Eastleigh talking about mental health and the importance of that. And I think the Lib Dem spokesperson talking about the challenges with women members of the Fed in particular, which is something that is very live to me as well. I've had several meetings talking about the issues of if a police officer, for example, is in a relationship with another police officer and there's domestic abuse in that relationship, what you do in that space is very difficult at the moment, I think, and there are lots of challenges there. So thank you to everybody for very thoughtful, including the Shadow Minister, for thoughtful comments. I think we all know there's a problem here, and I recognise my honourable friend's frustration with wanting to see movement, and we are looking at this very carefully, very mindful of the arrests that have happened, very mindful that we haven't seen the pace of change that we want, and very mindful of our legal obligation to make sure rank and file have representation. And with that, and with a thanks again to everybody for the debate, I'll end it there. Thank you.
Jonathan Hinder to briefly wind up.
Thank you, Mrs Harris. So I just want to thank particularly my colleagues, my honourable friends, the member for Stevenage and Dagenham Rainham, for your support for police officers. I know the effectiveness of the Police Federation is not necessarily a debate that most MPs are necessarily that engaged in, so I really appreciate you coming and advocating on behalf of police officers in your patches. And also to other colleagues as well for sharing the experiences of police officers, for talking about Northern Ireland, which this is not really focused on. It is about the Police Federation of England and Wales, but it was interesting to hear, and for the collegiate nature of the whole debate from all sides. I really appreciate people attending, paying it attention, and I hope we can continue to work on a cross-party basis to reach a much better state of police representation in the very near future. And just to say, most of all, thanks to all the police officers across the whole United Kingdom for what you do for us. I'm proud to have been one of you and honoured to have a role, a small role to play in speaking up for you now as an MP. Thank you.
The question is that this House has considered the effectiveness of the Police Federation. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Order, order. The sit-in stands adjourned.